Hello and welcome to the Where's My Thing podcast, where we help you find your thing
as well as help us find our thing
in this exciting world. Today we're going to be talking about strengths and weaknesses and our recent revelations around it. So let's get going. So as we covered in previous episodes of the Where's My Thing podcast, Rob and I recently realised that the channel was going in the wrong direction and we needed to make some radical changes to keep it afloat. And while this concept may be touched on throughout this episode, just for context, the main crux of this episode is going to be based around the nature of us as human beings, not necessarily as professionals. But before we get stuck into that, it is time for the weekly 60-second update. Who's first?
You are this time.
Great. So my 60-second update starting from now. Now I'm going to try and take this one a little bit more chilled than previous weeks because I rush quite often and I just want to take my time with this. Not because I haven't got a lot to cover, I just want to take my time. So firstly, big news of the week is I managed to finish all the inspection stuff at Rykerwood, which has been looming over me. That's been carrying out today and I've got nothing to do with it, so as far as I'm aware, my job is done. Apart from anything else, the rest of the week has just generally been getting stuff back in order in terms of my life, everything we're doing here, and just doing things that I want to do rather than procrastinating and wasting time. It's basically involving reading lots of books, doing things that I really enjoy doing, and I don't want to talk about them too much because it means it's definitely for me then and I'm not doing it to impress anyone. But yeah, I've just been doing that and I've been enjoying it. Biscuits.
Oh, nice.
That was very chilled.
That was really relaxed.
I mean, this week it's been a little bit different in that I've been doing quite a lot in the workshop, but there's been a different theme throughout the week, just trying to sort things out a bit. And it's actually what this episode is obviously going to be based around, some of the things that me and you spoke about yesterday. And yeah, I should give reasoning behind my seemingly unproductive week.
No, that makes sense. It's a bit more about self-improvement.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. How about you? Let's hear what you've done.
How about me? So, I might have to rush mine, so here we go. My 60 seconds starts now. Well, Matthew James Esley.
Oh.
This week, I have completed my website to about 80%. Completed is the wrong word there, but got it to 80%. It just needs a few lessons to fill it out and a few little details in the background. The Where's My Thing podcast has some new merch arriving. That's going to be good. I've got some samples. There's a beanie, there's a hoodie, there's a shirt. It's going to be very nice. And of course, I edited the last podcast, which was a nightmare. I finished my new music book with all of the pieces. Those are sounding lovely, really happy with it. And I discovered a book that I'd written 70% of already, so that was a little bonus. Got 3 more books planned and tested a new video format with great success, so look out for that if you want to learn how to play the piano. And I did a 2-hour live stream to experiment with a new format myself on sort of music production, which was pretty damn awesome. Cookies.
We have decided there's going to be an ongoing feud here with biscuits versus cookies.
Well, we haven't decided it. It's just that's the way that nature intended it, because cookies are better than biscuits.
You see, I'm more of a biscuit boy.
How are you ever going to get
a t-shirt?
You're more of a biscuit boy?
I'm a biscuit boy, mate.
Consider it done.
I just like the big packs where you get loads of them. It's nice getting a pack of cookies for £1, but loads of biscuits?
Nah. Quality over quantity every single time.
Tuck biscuits, mate, are the best.
I have no idea what you're talking about because I don't partake in that sort of disgusting nature.
I love Tuck biscuits so much that it's a really nice biscuit, salted. It's a cracker, I suppose, in a way, but it's also a biscuit.
So it's got worse.
But I like them so much that I want to get a ginger cat one day and call it Tuck after Tuck biscuits. Side note, I also want to get another one that's black and brown and call it Jaffa after Jaffa cakes.
We're going to get into an argument about cakes and biscuits with Jaffas now, aren't we?
Yeah,
Thankfully, cookies don't fall into that because they're just so premium, there's no argument.
Yeah, and they're also not as good as biscuits, so why worry?
Get out of there.
Right, anyway, procrastination aside, or tangents aside, should we say, the focus of this episode is going to be talking about our strengths and weaknesses, reflecting on them, working around them, all sorts of things that we discovered through a meeting we had yesterday after we did an exercise that I devised, just spare of the moment, thought of this cool exercise to give a go for both of us, and we got some really good results from it, really interesting results actually, that actually explained a lot of the problems and just the struggles we've had over the months of doing this YouTube stuff.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this isn't so much business, of course, we said that, but what we've done in the past is we've analysed different channels, we've analysed what we do, we've analysed what other people do, and tried to make the business make a lot more sense, the videos make a lot more sense in terms of making sure the viewer count's higher, making sure people actually enjoy the videos more. And that's all well and good, but then you've also got the personal stuff where that really affects how your business goes in the first place, and we've never focused on that before. So Matt sort of devised this. I don't even know what it was, but he said to me, "Do you mind if I send you this, essentially a form to fill out?" I'm like, "What is this? Is he going to fire me if I don't fill this out correctly?" I get it, and it's a Venn diagram with 4 massive circles overlapping barely. With 50 things that I was meant to be inputting into this damn diagram. You created a nightmare.
I think you'll find it's actually 47. And by the way, if you want to see these diagrams filled out, they will be available on the podcast website for this episode. So go and have a look there and you'll be able to see what we put down and what they actually look like as well, because there's quite interesting points on there, I think.
Yeah, so if anyone's got any suggestions on how to improve the format for next time, please do, because it was a nightmare, but we learnt a lot.
Yeah, because this is something we want to do quarterly. But, as Rob said, this is important for any business. Pretty much every book I've read on business talks a little bit about self-awareness. I've been reading a lot recently that have been reflecting on that more than other books. And actually, I then realised that it's especially important with what we do, where we are literally the faces of the business, compared to other more traditional ones where you can sort of tuck behind a product or a service or whatever. For us, it's like we need to be on point with what we do.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. There's not a single bit of what we do that gets hidden away. Mm-hmm. Especially when we're able to do the behind the scenes, which is what we used to do back when we were in the workshop before lockdown. Literally every single moment of our lives, it seemed, was being displayed to the public, and of course we don't really think about it all that much, or at least we don't think about each other's way of presenting, we don't think of each other's way of doing our work, and this really sort of highlighted a few really important things, which was fascinating. It's probably worth doing yourself.
Yeah, definitely. And as well, on top of that, it's also a really complicated business. We need to be able to streamline things according to what our strengths and weaknesses are in order to have any success in doing things. And actually, I think I started off on a good foot with all this. I had pretty strong drive and stuff to do things, and euphoria, I suppose, from the good feedback I was getting from comments drove me through that and actually allowed me to power through some weaknesses. But obviously over time those weaknesses start building up, and it just gets to a point where you need to address them and start trying to break them down a bit. So I guess to get stuck into it without teasing it too much, because we've been going for quite a while now on just this intro. This Venn diagram, essentially it consisted of 4 circles. The 2 top left and bottom right. Top left was what you're good at, bottom right is what you're bad at, and then top right is what you enjoy doing, and bottom left is what you hate doing. So effectively it balances these 4 things of what we're good at, what we hate, and effectively we had a number of tasks that I noted down to act as prompts that we wanted to put in various sections. You could make them overlap because it is a Venn diagram where you enjoy and you're good at certain things, and you can also use it to identify things that you really hate and you're not actually good at in the first place. And of course the ideal outcome for this was ideally everything that I had in the top 2, being things that I liked and I was good at, would be in the bottom for Rob, and everything that was in the top for Rob would be at the bottom for me. Therefore we were completely opposing in what we were good at and what we enjoyed doing, therefore all bases were covered.
Yeah. It's a really interesting way of thinking about it like that, because when you first said that, I thought, wait, what? You want us to be opposing in everything that we do? But realistically, it just means that we both love doing what the other person hates, thus you're working at maximum efficiency.
Yeah, and of course there's going to be processes where that overlaps and you do need to get your heads together, and that would really involve some skull bashing, I think, to try and get over those hurdles. If we didn't see eye to eye on anything, I think there would be real struggles. But going into this, I knew that wouldn't be the case with me and Rob. We see eye to eye on a lot of things. We work very similarly for the most part. What I was looking for primarily was I guess the differences on the fringes of those things, like where our biases were in certain areas, was, although we agree on some things, does one of us enjoy it more than the other, or is one of us slightly better at it than the other? And we just had that open discussion covering each and every one of these points. And we uncovered a very interesting theme throughout the whole thing, which we'll start with because it will give explanation and context behind all the remaining points, which was, overall we discovered that I am much more of a bigger picture thinker. Rob is very good at focusing on the fine details of stuff and filling things out and making things actually real, I think. Yeah,
I guess I'm not so much for the big ideas initially, but like if I've got an idea, I end up sort of just doing every little bit of it that I can. Whereas Matt, you're just you start on it, get a really good start going, and then get distracted by the next big idea.
Yeah, exactly. It's a little bit of that. It's also not really... It's been part of my problem with not knowing how to address certain things due to, inexperience or not knowing where to go with certain things. There's all sorts of reasons why I haven't attacked things, but primarily that is my fault. Like, it's, if I can identify I'm bad at something, get it fixed. And actually, I think it's very easy to be naive that, I've come this far with the YouTube channel. The first few years, really good, got a good following and things like that. And I just kind of assumed that, well, I had this grand idea, which has come into fruition. And there's a lot of filming. There's a lot of metadata and all these sort of things you got to fill out. That means I'm also good at the details. Hey, I'm good at them all. When actually, although I did do them, it doesn't mean you're good at them. Or you even like doing them. It just means that they got done somehow, probably through the drive of seeing the bigger picture, and actually it just started degrading over time.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it's fascinating how that just applies to you on a really small level as well. So Matt already knows where I'm going with this. If say I had an issue, if I saw something that was wrong or I could see a better way of doing something, I would immediately try and fix it. I would immediately try and make that thing work or purchase the thing to make my life easier. Whereas Matt, if he has a problem, if he has an issue, if he has something that's a little bit slow in the process, there's nothing wrong with that. He'll just deal with the issue when it arrives. And it's just because he's going for that bigger picture and I'm just sorting out the details in the present.
I'm living, a little bit too far in the future is the main thing. Yeah, that's the main problem with this. And actually that covers a lot of the points that we'll cover with regards to like long-term investments and stuff like that. That's what pretty much everything I do is towards. Rob's much more geared to, like he just said, fixing the problems now. Both in the short and mid-term things. It's just a completely different way of thinking that I think we kind of had a perception around, but we didn't quite realise how much it's spread across pretty much everything we do. Yeah,
it's really applicable. And what the next thing that we learned was the fact that your world really revolves around the physical things. Like, if you're making a toolbox, as you're doing at the moment, you're happy to deal with the details of the physical product because you can see it. It's a tangible thing that makes a difference to your life, like, as in literally your life. Whereas anything that ends up being a little bit more virtual, whether that's, I don't know, YouTube descriptions, end screens, annotations, all that sort of stuff, or website detail, you sort of don't touch it nearly as much because it doesn't affect you. Or like it's not as literal to you, that therefore you look at the big picture of those things, but you're definitely against the details of that.
Yeah, I think I was thinking about this a lot last night because we only had this conversation yesterday. And I think the main thing that allows me to focus on the details with regards to the physical things, being the woodwork, is that is literally my main product, the videos. And without that focus on detail, I don't really have my brand of fine furniture making or anything like that. And it probably explains why people don't like it when we start building mezzanine floors and stuff like that, because that brand kind of gets a little bit lost. So there's a bit of that, and also that explains why I'm able to focus on the details with YouTube or this whole business early on, because there was a drive behind it. I was focusing on these fine details, but as the business gets bigger and it's not necessarily about that main product, it's about the things around it, that's where you start uncovering that, I was under this delusion that I was good at the details because I could cut a dovetail really well. That's not the case. It's not the case in this other areas.
But it's just interesting, isn't it, how it's all sort of, it affects absolutely everything. And so if you're sort of thinking, I guess it is essentially, it's just finding your strengths and weaknesses, isn't it? It's not much more than that. But because we've got this Venn diagram that's so in depth, we just ended up learning so many specific things as well that just are really going to change the way we sort of format, I guess, our days.
Yeah.
Like if we then look at time management, for you, that is way down in the what you're absolutely rubbish at, and pretty much what you dislike because it just doesn't work for you.
Yeah, I think you said it was off the chart in the fire underneath.
Yes. Yeah, if I was doing your diagram, that's where I would put it. In fact, I'd grab a couple of extra A4 pieces of paper and start burning the base of it while I'm writing it in.
So I will say this Venn diagram came from a book that I'm reading at the moment. And what's interesting is where I'm sort of going through this thing at the moment where I'm finally fixing things, is I looked at this book and I was halfway through it. I started reading it throughout the first lockdown last year, and I got halfway through it and put it down and obviously started another book because I don't commit to things like that. But no, it's a really good book. It's called Principles by Ray Dalio. I spoke about it in the book episode we did previously. But I looked at it and thought, I could just carry on halfway and get it done. But I actually started from scratch, and this is like the biggest book I have. It's like 2 inches thick. Started from scratch, and I realised that how useful it is, or how brilliant it is to read books like this when you're actually ready to take the advice. Because back then I was just reading it like out of interest. It's a cool looking book. He's a really successful guy. Maybe I was going to learn a thing or two. And it was cool. But actually reading it now with this new approach to things and this new knowledge, the first chapter in it literally talks about radical transparency and being completely open and completely honest with yourself about how good you are at things. Talks about ways of doing that. Well, I literally read it this morning where it's talking about weaknesses and the different ways you can approach them. You can either turn a blind eye to it, which is kind of what I've done. You can either try and learn how to do it, which is what I try and do, but it's not always the best way of doing it. You could hire someone else to do that problem, or cover it for you, or you can just work around the problem. So perhaps addressing it isn't always the way of doing it. You could work around it in various ways. So there's these other ways of doing it, but the worst one is, of course, just turning a blind eye to it and pretending that it doesn't matter, because it does. It really does,
regardless.
And it's not just in the business side, it is mainly the personal side for me, that those problems exist, that I've just been like, yeah, that's just me. Well, why don't I fix it?
So yeah, I mean, that particularly shows up when I'm sending you a message and I hear nothing back for sometimes days. It's been weeks before. In fact, I keep saying in fact. No, it happens all the time. I send multiple messages to you and you will read the last one in the chain and ignore probably the most valuable information that I sent as a link to begin with. I try and keep it short for you. I try and make it concise because I know your little brain can't cope, but you still ignore them.
Yeah.
Because your management of even just responding to people is a bit of a challenge. But it's interesting because, like you were saying about ignoring things, and that's like the worst thing you can possibly do. I've noticed something that's popped up, and it's getting worse and worse for me. It's my ability with names. I can't take in names.
Yeah.
Physically, my brain doesn't remember someone's name until they've said it to me and it's been displayed to me multiple times. It has to be visually existing there. And I'm slightly worried that because I'm ignoring it so much, that in a couple of years' time, I won't actually have the capacity to remember anything about anyone. Like, that's one of those things that I think if there's a weakness to focus on, and I think names are a massive one in business to remember, I need to be working on it now to start fixing things and finding ways around it.
Yeah, at least remembering the context behind those names, like picking up the conversations where you left behind before. That is one thing that I feel I'm quite good at doing. Although I'm not necessarily like a social animal, I like spending time with myself. I'm quite good at remembering details like that with regards to names and things, just because it's actually helped with a book that I read recently on how to improve your memory, because there's literally an entire section on remembering names of people. And
I need to buy that book.
Yeah, well, I mean, I could give it to you. It's like a centimetre thick. It's really easy.
Nice.
But yeah, it talks about things like that. But I think the whole thing with this, again, I got this from the Principles book, is the way that these problems should be addressed. Firstly, you should be aware that you're not good at everything. You need to be aware that you do have weaknesses, and they do exist. All right,
Really?
maybe not you, Rob.
Okay,
but,
thank you.
You need to admit to yourself that they exist, and you need to admit to yourself that you are deficient in some areas. For me, a lot of areas. Once you've done that, there is this he's got these recurring drawings throughout his book, and if you imagine it like a chart going up towards the top right, and along that chart it says goal. Then what happens is that starts to plateau, and it says problem. So obviously that makes sense. You're going towards a goal, you're working towards it, you hit a problem, you start plateauing. When you hit that problem, you have a choice of just letting it stay a problem, therefore you stay plateaued, which is where I've been at with a lot of these things, that literally the past few years is what I reckon. Or you've got a choice of looking at it, diagnosing it, and what that looks like is when you diagnose it, is it takes a sharp dip, because you have to basically unlearn a lot of things. You actually end up going back on yourself a bit, so that chart's looped down under it now, while you're diagnosing those problems, and then you start designing a plan. When you're at that point, obviously the chart starts rising again, you start looping back round, and then you work on the next goal. So it's basically doing this sort of continuous loop of discovering problems, looping back round, going back on yourself, and just constantly doing that. It looks like a pig's tail kind of thing, or like a drawing of one.
Yeah, no, I can visualise it. I can see exactly where you're going with that. And I think it's the sort of thing that almost like James was getting on the last episode, where you're sort of picking up on the chunks of your work that you can make more efficient. Yeah. The biggest percentages to make the most amount of effort. And it's like, if you're struggling with some problems and then you actually put your mind to it, your speed towards that goal is naturally going to increase, because if you encounter that problem again, you're just blasting straight past it.
Yeah, he talks a lot about it being another one of those where like you learn enough of these problems, you learn how to deal with them, where actually further down the line it's like, okay, well, I had this problem a while back, this is how I fix it. And you're able to identify them, but you can only do that by actually fixing them. So let's go through some of these points that we've got on here. I split it down into 3 broad categories. First one being personal, second one being finances, third one being processes. We won't touch on all of them because there is literally 47 of them. But again, they are all visible on the website should you wish to have a look and see where we placed ourselves on them. Of course, the first one there I think worth addressing is timekeeping. Like that's, obviously we spoke about that a little bit already, but timekeeping, myself, I'm not very good at it. I've tried, and I think that's an area that I could get better at. Unless I got a PA or something like that, which I can't afford at the moment. I kind of need to get better at it. Is what I'm saying, and that's enough drive to make me do it. Whereas you,
I'm the exact opposite. I'm into it. Like, I enjoy it. Like, for me, I schedule my day as specifically as I can possibly get, essentially. As specifically as I can without wasting time making the plan in the first place, because it's counterintuitive past a certain point. So that's an interesting crossover where we've sort of made a little bit more of a decision where I'm going to schedule far more things that are outside of what Matt does fundamentally, of course, because he's got his own videos to record. But in terms of the podcast, for Babinga Boys, setting up meetings in terms of just discussing other things, I'm going to be in control more of that, because then that forces Matt to actually get something done. He's got to follow the precedent that I set because of the accountability that I provide.
Yeah, exactly. I'm too focused on stuff happening in the future where I don't actually organise anything that is happening now. I'll put reminders and stuff on my phone for, like, you know, calls and stuff throughout the day, but other than that, I won't schedule cut-off times or anything like that. I'll just keep working late into the night, which is something I am fixing this week. And it's worked very well not doing that. It's just things like that. I've just not scheduled enough and I'm not organised enough, and that has a knock-on effect with what I'm doing here because it's not efficient. Like, I got to the point in the toolbox yesterday, came into the workshop, was like, right, need to install the hinges. I haven't got any hinges. I need to go to Screwfix. Went to Screwfix, had to buy hinges. That's like, you know, 45 minutes wasted. Come back in, do the hinges throughout the rest of the day, come back in the next day, right, need to install the lock. I did have a lock.
Right.
I went into my toolbox, but it turns out I only had the bottom section of the lock, not the top bit that attaches to the lid. If I'd have just checked that at the start and just been organised with this, instead of thinking, I need to go in and film this toolbox series, you know, if I'd just taken 10 minutes at the start and thought, right, here's everything I need, it's a real problem.
Yeah, I mean, you could do that right at the start of a project, couldn't you? Just go and think, right, what hardware do I need from start to finish, and just have that already going.
Yeah, and that's the thing, like, that's an easy fix. But previously, I've just lived with it. I'd be like, yeah, I'm not organised.
Well, yeah, it's that same mentality of having a problem occur and then dealing with it, like, later. Because you didn't think far enough ahead. In fact, you had no choice but to deal with some of those in the now, but you still could have thought that extra step ahead to, will this happen again to me?
Exactly, and like, I would have learned from that now with the next project. Get it organised, get it all written down first, figure it out. Don't just jump into it like a nut job and regret things later, because it's stupid, it's pointless. Easy fix that, but you only fix it by addressing it.
Yeah, and on those lines, I think a little bit of advice for you now, because me and my girlfriend, we always discuss, like, how well we've done something in terms of cooking, how well we've roasted a chicken, or how well the roast potatoes have gone. And we say, right, we need to remember to do this next time. We never remember, we've always forgotten, and it goes wrong sometimes. Advice for you, I think you need to have a specific notebook where you write down these pieces of advice. So you have your project notebook where you say, right, check your hardware, create a checklist, because otherwise it's all well and good saying it now, you're going to forget it, and it's going to be the same thing if I was going to do that.
Well, that's literally what this book Principles is about. It's about writing down your principles and processes for things, not blindly copying the ones he's got. Like, there's some really good ones in there that really make you think, damn, that's insightful, but actually a lot of it's just about making your own and noting them down. So yeah, you've literally said exactly what he recommends in the book, and is what I'm going to do. Because
no, it's not what you're gonna do. It's you do it now. Because if you say what I'm gonna do, you've left the mistake until later.
No,
go and get yourself a notebook.
I say, I've already done it. Is what I'm saying.
Okay.
I said at the start, I'm doing things for myself rather than talking about it. But one of them is journaling. At the end of the day, writing down the successes and reflecting on it, and it's actually proven to be really good.
So you've written down the whole hardware thing.
Yeah, well, not necessarily the hardware thing.
See, there we go.
No, specifically, it's about being more organised from the get-go.
Yeah, I think you need to get into the specifics.
Yeah, I might need to. I'm not that detail-oriented, mate.
That's it. I mean, you can see why it suddenly makes sense to actually think about it out loud, because you might think about these in your head, but once you say them, they suddenly become a very real thing. And it's a little bit terrifying to find them out. So, fitness and health was another big one that we had a little bit of contrast on. And I'm slightly worried that this is painting me in a really good light, as if I really big myself up all the time. But we haven't got on to some of the later ones yet. But yeah, so this is all in the personal category. We're in fitness and health. Where do you place yourself, Matt?
I placed myself in what I am. You're gonna have to bleep this. What I'm at, but also what I enjoy. The reason I did that is because I used to love fitness. I used to love going to the gym. If you watch my early videos, I was pretty well cut in them, quite healthy looking. But I just let that slide. Various reasons, relationships, lockdowns, it just slides over time. But I really enjoyed it. I still have an interest in it. It's just really hard for me to do it. That's all it was. It was, although I enjoy it, I've been going for the easy option. So if it's a choice of choosing what I enjoy or going for the easy one, my nature would just make me go to the easy option. Not necessarily looking at what this book would refer to as the second order consequences of that. Is like, you go for the hard thing, you're going to feel good. You go for the easy thing, you're going to be delusional. And that's basically where I've been living. It's like, I feel good about myself because I'm not doing hard stuff. I just feel comfortable, and that's not my nature. Like, I want to be doing stuff, but I've just convinced myself that I am happy. Sort of, like, but no.
Yeah. If once you're at a certain level, in anything, you realise that you begin to believe that's your new norm. Mm-hmm. And therefore you don't think there's anything wrong, really. You might have an inkling, but you're sort of like, you're just sort of settled in that area. But I mean, for me with the fitness and health, the last 3 or 4 months of the year in 2020, I did very little. Obviously the summer had gone by. I'd previously been doing workouts in the garden. That was great. In fact, I damaged my knee in the first lockdown from doing too much of it. Then I was really getting into running in the autumn, and then I damaged my Achilles heel while I assume it was my trainers and lack of warm-up. And so then I just decided, after reading this, the Habits book that we've mentioned before, I decided, right, come the new year, you can think of it as a New Year's resolution, but to me it's a restart. Mm-hmm. I love it when I get to a new month. I love it when I get to a new week, in fact, because it is just a brand new start. Everything else doesn't matter. And so that new year, I just decided every single day I'm going to do exercise, I'm going to run. What have I done? I've damaged myself again, but that's beside the point. I love the health and fitness thing because I know how bad I felt in the final months of 2020. Mm-hmm. And I feel so much better now, even though I've gone and given myself a shin splint. Sean Connery.
That's the thing with that. I think when you're not doing exercise, at least with me, again, I got comfortable with that feeling of not doing it, when actually you realise how bad, when you start doing it, you realise how bad you felt before.
Yeah.
Because you sort of unlock this new kind of alertness, awareness, and just general drive to do things.
Yeah.
Whereas before that, you're a bit more sluggish. I found it really difficult to wake up in the mornings. I got really bad at it towards the end. It's such a huge thing that I love doing, but I'm just really bad at it. And there's a lot of things, I spoke about playing bass and stuff this week. I absolutely love playing it. And I've realised that I still am actually quite good at it. But it was just so much easier to pick up a game on the computer than it was to pick up the bass.
But Satisfactory is a good game to be playing, though.
I've stopped playing it now, but just because it makes me play it until 1 o'clock at night.
Yeah. I had the natural stopping point of Becky coming home from work. Becky being my girlfriend. So every time she came back from work, I had to stop playing the game. Which was very sad, but very healthy as well.
Yeah, that's good. Whereas me, living with my brother and my other housemate, very similar interests, we could just keep going. And
yeah, I would be doing the same thing in your situation.
Yeah, it's so easy to do. You'll go for the easy option rather than the one that expends energy playing bass and a little bit of creativity as well. You just go for the easy option, even though it's not necessarily what you'll enjoy the most. So, yeah, that's where fitness was for me as well. It actually really annoys me that I let it sort of slide. And it annoys me how many prompts I got from like you and stuff where you're doing it. I'm like, sorry. I'm like, like, that's awesome that he's doing it. Why am I not able to do this? Because I know I love it. It's just really hard.
And I insulted you so much about your weight and your aesthetic. I thought that was helping.
Yeah, well, to be fair, it did. I mean, I forgot to tell you, I got a comment on TikTok as well by someone saying, "Man, my man put on the lockdown weight." I'm like, yeah. Funnily enough, I didn't actually put on any weight throughout lockdown. I put on weight between my birthday and Christmas when people sent me so much beer.
Yeah.
Oh, unbelievable.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of those things. It is hard to do, but so worth it, and I'm just so glad I've picked it up again now.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're listening to this and you're kind of thinking, well, what has any of this to do with business? Because we're just essentially talking about our personal lives with timekeeping and fitness and health, but it ties in so much. Now, obviously, the timekeeping's pretty damn obvious, but in terms of the fitness and health, being able to put in that extra, to be honest, it feels like an extra 20-25%,
Yeah.
if not more, every single day, because you're just alert, you're active, and you're ready to go. There's just so many benefits to actually analysing your personal life and improving them for the sake of your business.
For me, it gives me a start on the day where it's like I've already done the hard bit, which is force myself to get out of bed at God knows what time in the morning to do this run or whatever. Like that for me is the hardest part of the day. The rest is plain sailing. Yeah, it's difficult to get my words out on camera a lot of the time, but that's not a physical struggle where it feels like my heart's going to blow out my chest.
Yeah, exactly. I'd love to see you run. I've never seen you run. I can imagine it would be a sight to behold.
It's not a run at the moment. I never focused on cardio. I focused on size and mass before, not cardio.
Oh god, yeah. Give it like a couple of months, and you're just gonna be like really lanky and slim. Like no, it's not muscular anymore. Just you focus on the running too much. But anyways, we should move on from the personal. Let's get into the whole business side of things and fall on the side of finance. Now, for me, finance is where I sort of fall apart a little bit. Like, I'm not awful with money, but I'm not great with it either. I tend to, quite honestly, spend probably more than I actually own because I like to use credit cards and I like to use finances. Now, not in a I'm a terribly in debt sort of way. In a I need to make sure I pay these by the end of the month because I'm getting slightly worried I'm going to spend too much on top of that. If that sort of makes any sense. I sort of layer it and layer it and layer it. And that's what I did. That's what I used to do in 2019, 2018 and 2020, back when Wayside Productions was doing a lot more music videos, seeing a lot more clients. I was buying all the lights, I was buying all the gear, and that's fine, but I was also buying things that potentially weren't necessary in the moment, and this will sort of come to light with where I put my certain points. So I don't know which one you want to start off with, but I guess investing's probably a decent space.
I think investing, we've got the 3 points there: short-term, long-term, and mid-term investments that I accidentally put down as just term investments. Yeah, for me, again, I'm like the complete opposite of this, where I feel like I'm really happy with my approach to money. I think it's quite healthy. I don't feel like I need to do much more of it other than just get a little bit better at managing the day-to-day side of it. In terms of the overall attitude, though, my vision is just purely long-term. Whatever I'm doing now with regards to spending money, to fix problems, I think, well, if I spend it now, then that's taking my long-term vision one step further away, which is why I'm so bad at fixing problems in the present, because it takes away from my long-term thinking. My long-term thinking, it's all listed in my first financial report, which we'll obviously be doing a new one this month. So yeah, if you want to know more about that, but that's my general attitude, is purely long-term and going through struggles now so that it can pay off later. It's all built around that, and I'm content with that. There are downfalls of it somewhere, but it's working so far. I have no reason to address it other than the organisation and accounting side of things, because those fall in the details. It's not the long term. That is the stuff now that I'm doing, but it's not efficient whatsoever.
Yeah, and I think that's I think that's where you've actually already started to help me in terms of the finances, whether you've meant it or not, because you're so damn stingy on the bits that I want you to buy. I've started to realise, well, maybe it's not normal to want to buy all the things all the time. Maybe we need to, well, maybe I need to take a sort of closer look at what I'm doing. So I like to think over the last 2 months, say, it's not been long, but over the last 2 months, I've been a hell of a lot more careful with what I've been purchasing. If I think about getting anything in regards to video production, I analyse it. I think, actually, am I going to be utilising it? Do I need it for the workshop? No. Do I have any more clients at the moment to go and do music videos with? No, because it's a lockdown. So why am I even thinking about it? Leave it for later and hope for a deal then, and it's going to probably work out better. So I'm improving, I like to think, with the investments, and you've certainly helped with that, and that's where that crossover of opposites is working naturally already.
Yeah, but I think again, like that has your attitudes also helped me as well, where you've been able to you know how to justify purchases to me, and actually we spoke about this a little bit before the podcast, but actually we've been able to do some real rapid experimentation and evolution with our setup of equipment here, and also not necessarily equipment but the processes as well, like the way we just do things. Like if we hadn't have spent the time and money working these things out, then we wouldn't have had this awesome live stream setup. We wouldn't be doing this podcast. There's a lot of things we wouldn't be doing just because I would be thinking I'm all for investing in things that will help me in the future, but just not at a quick rate and not so impulsively. Like it's all built around that basically.
Yeah. So I mean, sometimes it works. Sometimes, like, even though I'm not so great with money in the short term, and Matt's not so great. Wait. Yes. Yeah. No. I guess it's both. We're both not so great in the short term, but in opposite directions.
Yeah. We are. Yeah.
And so it sort of balances out, and it's sort of helping out there. So in which case, like, that's the fundamental of finances in the first place. I mean, it's your investing in the short, the mid, or the long term with whatever revenue you've got, and balancing that out with your savings and whatever else is going on. So we filled out more in that column, and you can see that on the website, but we won't dive any more into it because it's sort of self-explanatory. You can understand who we are just from those basic points.
Yeah.
Really. So I guess let's get onto the sort of processes, and that's leaning more towards video production. That's more towards the media side of things. That's what we do as the job, I guess.
It's where we can take these results from the personal and the finances and, you know, our general nature and actually apply them to actionable things, which we do day to day. Because one thing, I knew the results of this test would align me and Rob in the same way. I knew it wouldn't be polarised, which is what would have been nice in some ways. But there is advantages with us being in the same direction in that it puts two people on the attack rather than one on attack and one on defence. Yes, it leaves you vulnerable in some areas, but that's where I've started learning the importance of maybe outsourcing stuff to more people, freelancers or whatever. We've got to get a bit of income before we do that, of course, but I'm aware that needs to be done now, whereas previously I'd have been like, it's taken away from my long-term vision, so I can't do that. But yeah, we've got this really great thing where we could have two people on the attack, attacking completely different things, maybe overlapping in some areas, but just getting so much done really efficiently and to a really high quality as well, by building on our strengths. But at the moment, we don't have that criteria, because we haven't been aware of this. The fact that I'm good at the general direction, Rob's good at making it happen. It's the last moment polishing that I'm good at, but coming up with those initial ideas and actually putting them into action, that's where you get your strength from. Yeah, it's not that we can't do each of them, it's just some of us are better at things than the other. And so that's what we're hoping to do with this. And so going through some of them, we'll kind of broadly speak about some of them. With regards to video researching and planning, I feel like I'm very good at coming up with overall stories for videos and how I kind of want it to look from a director's point of view. Because from here on the main channel, I'm going to be the one editing the videos with the story primarily. But then Rob is going to come in and sort of fill in the finer details and stuff afterwards, like we did on the Stanley plane. I don't think we spoke about this yesterday, actually. Like,
No.
Sorry, the Amazon Basics plane.
I was going to say, I was very confused for a moment there.
Yeah, so for that was mainly me filming and editing it, of course, and getting the overall story. But then you came in afterwards and looked at points of it like, right, sound effects there, extend that out for suspense, and do this whole thing just to really emphasise it. Whereas what I would have got would have been a great story, but it's not, it just wasn't quite there, and that was what you came in and did really well.
Yeah, it's really interesting that, because I look at your, well, when I'm watching the video, I'm like, how the hell did you come up with this? in a really positive way. I'm like, this is actually so good. I can't believe you're actually good at things.
He said it. He said it.
Oh, but yeah. So I'm watching the video and I'm amazed at what you've come up with, because I just think, how the hell did you think in that way to have that cut in like that? How come you did a voiceover and then did a real time in real life miming of the voiceover to match that? And it's sort of the bigger framework of it, sort of, it blew my mind, because it was so cool to watch. And then I guess it's that same thing of an extra pair of eyes, looking at the detail. It's just the whole analysis thing that meant that I could come in and think, right, you've got that, what tweaks need to happen to make it just literally 5% better? Because you had 95% of it.
Yeah.
And it was just a tweak on top.
Yeah, and also, apart from anything, with regards to videos, like, it is so much easier to film and edit your own videos.
Yeah.
Compared to filming and filming your own and then having someone else edit it, because the editor doesn't really know what you were thinking at that time. And also, when you're filming it, I either need to communicate that to you, which is probably something that I'm not good at anyway, but I think the concept of me having to communicate and explain things when actually I could have just put out a satisfactory video rather than one that's really high quality, which again is why we've had this whole directional change with the videos, is just where the problem would have lied, and why we didn't put as much effort into those videos previously, just because we focused on the quality, not the quantity. It's that whole conversation coming up again. Whereas if we just build on what we are good at and we build a really good product at the end, yes, it's not going to be as often, but we're building on our strengths, we're doing what we really enjoy, and we're going to be proud of the result at the end, rather than just tick a box saying, yep, done, next.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll be able to output a larger amount of high quality content in that same way. So we were talking about, like, just for video production in terms of the editing, and that's great, because while Matt can be doing that, I can be doing the other things like the photo editing or generating content for other platforms like Instagram or Facebook. And that's where sort of that crossover of finding those right skills of enjoyment in the right places in a timely manner are going to create, it's going to be better content with more better content with a higher output at the same time.
Yeah, like, the reason I did this woodworking stuff, and the reason you've gone down this path of video editing and media, music in general, is just because we love doing it. And so what I want to do here is build something where we have got skills that we build on, that we are good at, and we actually really enjoy. Of course, there's going to be, there has to be trade-offs here and there, doing things that we both dislike doing, and in some cases we won't be good at until I can get someone else in to handle it. But yeah, it's just one of those things that's what I'm trying to weigh up with this constantly. Like, I want things to be enjoyable for us, and I want us to be good at them. And so with regards to that, the Instagram stuff and everything, I get a lot of fulfillment and things from doing it, and I get sort of a rush of endorphins when I get comments and stuff through, but I'm just not that good at it, I wouldn't say. Also with regards to things like emailing and stuff like that, we had the newsletter recently where I sort of I see that in the future as being something where I outline general points that I want to be covered, and I let you fill out the rest, and we go through the rest of it together to really fine tune it.
Again, that's bigger picture, and then details crossing over once again.
Like, I want a newsletter, this is what I want to go in it. Rob, can you actually make this happen, please? Make it good. It's that kind of thing. Whereas, you know, we actually did that before we had this revelation, but I think there was a high risk of me just saying, I want to do a newsletter, I'm going to do it, and I would have done it for maybe like 2 months, like my monthly updates, and it just wouldn't have happened from there.
Yeah, it's falling onto time management, it's falling onto accountability. It's just making sure that we're focusing what we do in the exact places that we're best at. And while like Matt's sort of saying that he's not so good at the Instagram, even though like he absolutely enjoys it, that's a weird crossover, because I wouldn't say I'm amazing at it either, but because I also enjoy it, it means that you can be focusing on your biggest strength, being the video editing and video production, while I'm perhaps matching your level on the Instagrams, but just doing two things at the same time.
Yeah, it's just trade-offs and things like the website design and all that as well. Like I'm really good at, or I really enjoy, and I like to think I'm quite good at mapping out how I want it to look and things with the menus and stuff, like the online school. I really enjoyed getting that organised and things like that, but I just wasn't good at going through each and every page, making sure things worked, because I'd be looking at things and think, oh, that doesn't look quite right there. Let's tweak that, rather than just go through things systematically and get it done. I'm just much more geared towards, here's how I want it to look. I'll even write some of the content for you. I just need to get the links and the SEO and all those other things. That's the sort of thing where I just can't, my attention span is not there, and I can slave through it. I don't enjoy it, and I may be good at some of those areas, but I'll slave through it slowly, when actually that energy could just be used on a strength, and get someone like yourself who is more geared towards it to do it. Maybe not necessarily enjoy. SEO is not a fun thing, but it's a trade-off.
But yeah, exactly. And I enjoy finishing those details. If I might not dislike them in the moment, but overall, if I finish a whole page, if I finish a whole menu that's got all 10, 30, 40 pages in it, then there's the satisfaction there. And we've decided now to sort of have a monthly look at each other's websites, because I've just built pretty much my own currently, and we're going to have a look and then give each other like 2 or 3 points, so nothing huge, but 2 or 3 points every single month to improve them, because otherwise we just don't do it, and we don't have that second pair of eyes to make the analytical comments. And we didn't talk about this previously, but in our personal columns, we both take criticism in the right way.
Yeah.
We don't dislike criticism, and Matt, in fact, quite enjoys the criticism as it comes along.
When it's constructive. When I get a comment and it's stupid criticism, I'll just have at them. But when it's constructive criticism, I've grown to really like it.
Yeah, exactly. And I might not be quite in the enjoyment category. I'm like, I will hear the criticism, I will hate you for it, I won't agree with you on it whatsoever. But after probably about half an hour of just, fine, I'll just give a go at doing whatever you said should be better, I suddenly realized, and it's happened so often, all the time, whether it's you or Becky or someone else, normally the comment I think is utter rubbish. I then do it out of principle because I want to prove them wrong, and then it turns out better, and I'm like, damn it, I've been proved wrong again.
Yeah, it's also your willingness to actually take action on it as well. Like, I think I can take criticism very well, but then the taking action on it is somewhat of a problem for me.
But I do it in the reverse. I'm doing it to try and get back at people, and it just happens to work out that it improves what I do, and I'm the one who's got egg on their face because like I was the one who was meant to be proving them wrong.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I think the criticism one, again, it was sort of established in the book, being radically transparent, and I think it's not also giving criticism to yourself. We've obviously spoken about this a lot, but just being open and really thinking about, what am I bad at? What can I criticise about myself that could be fixed? So I'm probably not going to do a lot of filming today. I'm going to go through a lot of the results from that thing we did yesterday, see if I can tie more together and actually write down more things that I feel like... Because with this whole spiral thing that I explained, he said about diagnosing problems might take 15 minutes to an hour or something like that. We spent about 2.5 on it yesterday.
We did.
But then the actual designing of like fixing it, that's where the time needs to be spent. Like really look into those granular details of like, what can we do to make this actually work? Because diagnosing it is exactly the same as plateauing if you're not going to do anything about it.
Yeah.
You need to actually design a good system around it that can actually implement that diagnosis in a constructive way. So that's probably what a lot of my day is going to be spent doing. Just thinking about that, reflecting on it, seeing what we can do, and yeah, make this a good year.
Yeah, and that's the reason why we just did all this. Why we looked at a Venn diagram for 2.5 hours, because we want to make sure that every minute of our time is being put into the correct thing. That's going to be pushing us towards the right direction, and creating the maximum amount of results with essentially the minimum amount of effort, really.
Yeah.
It's trying to find that balance where we absolutely love what we're doing and it's working for us at the same time.
Yeah, there's a lot to try and tie together in this, but, you know, go and look at the Venn diagrams. Maybe try it for yourself. It might be quite fun. I literally just thought of it in the morning when I was reading the book, thought this would be a cool way to try it. And I didn't really expect the conversation we had to come out of it. Not at all. I thought it might have just been quite interesting, but it is really... I should can you paint a Venn diagram like this? It probably exists somewhere. I've just recreated
not
something.
with this one. It's dreadful.
Yeah, there is a few dead areas on it that you can't really use very well. But anyway, it's there if you want to have a look at it. There's a lot to expand on, and we'll probably reference it in future episodes, sort of updating you on where we've got with this designing of the new processes and how we're getting along with things. And also, don't forget to have a look at the financial reports we've got on the website as well, because that might actually uncover some of the little things around this that we spoke out with regards to the finances or whatever, really.
While this episode has been a little bit more of a discussion than anything else, and while we haven't focused on anything that's like directly actionable to what you might do, it's worth still highlighting it, because I tell you what, I hated going through anything that was based on strengths and weaknesses at school.
Yeah.
Every single time it came up, I was like, this is utter rubbish. I'm amazing at everything. No, I'm joking. I couldn't help myself. But it was very much like, I hate the self-reflection. I see no point in it. Why am I going to improve because I'm just being nasty on myself? And it's not about that. It's just about showing without a shadow of a doubt what you're good at, if you enjoy it, what you're bad at, and why you're bad at it. And suddenly, sometimes you just think, right, I actually dislike this because I'm bad at it. And it's been really good, so it's really worth doing. If you can't find it directly on the website, because I'm going to have to put it in some, I don't know, some category somewhere, I'm not quite sure where it's going, there will be a link in the description of the YouTube video, and it should be in the show notes of the podcast, but I'm not sure if iTunes even shows show notes, but look on YouTube and you'll find it. Yeah,
I think with this as well, you have to be prepared to be open, and like, you just have to be ready to do this.
Yeah.
Identify what's at stake if you don't figure out these things. For some people, you know, just going through your everyday life, it probably doesn't matter that much. But for us, where we're both at the forefront of this business, and we both have very important roles in it, it is so important that we do this kind of thing, because what's at stake? It plateaus, people lose interest, it dies, I go back to working a 9 to 5. I don't really want that, to be honest.
And that almost happened.
Yeah.
Like in the grand scale of a channel, like, we didn't look at the analytics in a business point of view. This is the first time we've looked at analytics on a personal point of view. And it's about damn time we did it, because it was a close call at certain points.
Yeah, again, it's annoying how obvious it is, because so many things tell you to do this.
Yep.
But
it was ingrained in us from every business lesson we had at school. We were in the same class at school. But no, it's not the time to be focusing on that, to be fair.
No.
But if you've got the business, if you've got just your personal life that you need to improve, this is the way to do it. It really is.
Yeah, yeah. I'll put a link to the book that I'm talking about in the description below as well, because it's, really, I'm about a third of the way through it, and it's really helping me figure this stuff out as I go at the moment. Really good book. So, if you want to read that, it'll be listed there.
Will that be an affiliate link?
That will be an affiliate link, so we'll get a small cut at no extra cost to you. Thank you very much.
Nice little spiel there.
Thanks very much.
I think that's a good wrapping up point, because, I mean, it's just nice to go over it again and just highlight the fact that we can improve.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah, definitely. So keep updated on the Where's My Thing podcast. Obviously, the 60-second updates will spill the beans on how things are going. But as always, thank you very much for watching. Did you like my outro last week, by the way?
It was incredible. I really appreciated the pacing. Like, it felt good. It just rounded off so nicely, and with such a firm cut-off as well. It was ideal.
Thank you. I'm not feeling too creative this week, but I did just want to say to everyone, thank you very much for listening. We really appreciate you being here, and thanks for helping us and supporting us through all this sort of stuff, as well as putting up with us not putting out any content for at least a month and a half by this point.
We're putting out podcast content. I know it's not the same, but we still exist.
Yeah, no, we really appreciate it. I'll let Rob do the technical detail bits, because I just wanted to say thanks. See ya.
And he's gone. So don't forget to review the podcast on iTunes or Spotify. I still don't know if you can even review stuff on Spotify, but I'm going to assume you can. Go to the podcast website to find our financial reports. The Diagram of Fun. We never named it, but that's what the Venn diagram is actually called. The Diagram of Fun. And we'll include a blank document on there if you want to fill it out yourself. I recommend getting I'm going to use the word accountability buddy for you to be able to talk this over with as well, because it is really good. It's like chatting with someone else. You're my accountability buddy.
Yeah, that's a disgusting word, but all right then. You're doing a me outro.
I am. I've just embraced it by this point. I can't help things. You're going to ruin it in some other way later. And watch out for new merch coming soon. Coming soon. Yes.
All right, and never forget, biscuits are better than cookies. We'll see you next time.
No,
bye-bye.
You can't do that. No.